Big week. We're really excited about going to Boise and a big challenge. A couple things in review. Obviously, winning last week on the road was a big step for our football program, a place that we've had a hard time playing since I've been our head coach, and even prior to that. The turnover margin really was in our favor, which helped. I think our football team learned a lot about ourselves, and teams change during the course of the year. And so we're at the halfway point that we need to continue to improve. Looking at Boise State, I think first of all we want to credit Boise State's coaching staff and Coach Harsin. It's obvious they've done a great job bringing this football team along. As I look at tape on them through the year, they've improved. That's an indication to me that those players trust their coaches and they believe in their system, and they came up with a convincing win against a great football team, San Diego State, on the road. And so big step for Boise State, and a big challenge for us as we go to Boise and take them on. A little bit that's unique about Boise, they're playing two quarterbacks, and that had not been what they had done, at least since I've been our head coach. Rippon and Kozar both throwing the ball well, completing over 60% of the passes, and I think they're taking care of the football. They got a solid running game with Madsen. He's their leading rusher. The other thing that's really become apparent is their defense is very aggressive, and they're strong at the point of attack. I'm particularly impressed with how they tackle, they cancel gaps, they pressure the quarterback, they shut run lanes down, and so as a result, a big challenge there. And then obviously they're really strong on special teams. They turn the field over, excellent punt returner. They were explosive against San Diego State. A little bit about our health. We're banged up, but I think everybody that played during this last week will play against Boise, and we're also encouraged. We think we'll have Caden Jackson back, and so that's going to be a guy that is a seasoned veteran player. We'll know a little bit more, but I would say right now it would be probable for him to return. I think the biggest thing that's giving us our football team an advantage to win currently, I believe we're third in the country in turnover margin, and that's probably the most important statistic that there is. I think our defensive guys are doing a great job ball hawking, and we're doing a good job taking care of the football. Now, this is going to be a big challenge this week, but I know our players are excited about it. We're 2-0 in the conference play. Boise's setting really well, and so as you get into the heart of the schedule here, there's a lot to play for. So at this time, I'll open up to any questions from the audience or anybody that's on the phone.
Craig, you mentioned the two quarterback things at Boise, but it seemed like, I know they had struggled running the football early in the season. It seems like Mattinson has really, found his mark. Has that been a big step in their offensive efficiency? Is getting that run game going, particularly at the running back spot?
Well, it makes it much more challenging, Robert, when you're looking at defending and you have to defend everything. Then where if you've got just a one-dimensional offense that you're playing against, particularly if they're just going to throw and they haven't been effective in the running game, that makes a big difference, and they're generating yards. And Madsen's a good running back, and their offensive line's doing a good job.
Coach, what does, Kozar do compared to Rippon? Obviously, Rippon's been, one of the top QBs in the league here. What different does he bring to
A little bit more mobility. It's not that Rippon's not mobile, but I think a little bit more mobile. And what's interesting, though, is his completion percentage is a little bit better than Rippon. But it's a 1-2 punch, and it does pose somewhat of a challenge. They are a little bit different. They do some different things with those guys.
You said you're hopeful to get Caden back. You put him back. You just keep rushing there. Do you have to just kind of see how practice goes to see how you may line up offensive line-wise this week?
When we met with our sports medicine staff early this morning, they were positive. They felt like he'd be back. We'll find out a little bit more today. We'll be in a non-padded practice, see how he moves around. He was feeling really good last week. He's had good mobility in it, and it was just going to be about getting his strength back, and we'll be able to tell a little bit more. The great thing about Caden is he's played so many games, and it's taken so many repetition. You're not looking at a newer guy. You're looking at a seasoned veteran guy, and you're also looking at a guy that probably has as much to do with leadership within that offensive line.
Coach, with Alonzo, do you have a sense of how long he might be out for, and I guess how fortunate was it that Ryan was able to fill in last week?
Well, that was kind of almost a battlefield promotion. I mean, it happened one step because we had planned to play Ryan at guard. It looks like but Alonzo will be out the remaining of the year. We'll find out a little bit more once they complete the surgery.
So it's safe to assume Ryan stays at tackle then.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
That's correct. Yep.
You mentioned, the defense and the turnover margin, and just your thoughts of how Rico's played. I think 4 interceptions now, and I know he was pretty good last year too. But is it just another year in the system and the confidence, or has anything changed with him? Because he's certainly been a very productive guy.
Well, he certainly has. If you ask him, he knows exactly how many interceptions he has. But what you see is a guy that he's made 2 really, I think, spectacular interceptions against Iowa and this last week. I mean, those are hard catches to make because they came off a deflection. And he's done a good job in man coverage. He's done a good job on special teams. He's been not a great addition because he played last year, but I think he's certainly playing more consistent, and that's been very helpful.
Coach, you talk about confidence. You guys have won 3 straight. I know last year is last year, but you beat Boise State for the first time in program history. Is there some confidence with this group now that you've gotten on a little bit of roll and knowing that they have a win in their history with the guys that are veterans on this team against Boise?
Well, I think we said last year, but there's somewhat of a feeling, okay, we can't compete because until last year we were not even on the same field. Going on the road and playing in there will be a little bit more of a unique situation. There is a confidence level our football team has. There was a feeling in the locker room after the Utah State game. We had to win it the hard way, and sometimes those wins can really help propel you to a great trajectory. This will be a new week, but there's no doubt our players are playing with a great deal of confidence. They're enjoying being around one another. There's a great deal of energy on the practice field. I had breakfast with them this morning, and I know our guys are excited about playing this game.
Coach, looks like Josh has been doing more and more in the run game with kind of option-type plays. Is that something that you guys are pretty comfortable with him, and I guess is that a balance with not wanting him to take too many hits, I guess?
But we've always had part of our game plan on short yardage. I mean, he came up with a great pitch, and I think that's an indication of his athleticism. The other thing is he's 235 pounds, 6'6". He runs well, and so we'll pick and choose our time when Coach Vegan dials up a predetermined run. And the other thing Josh did during that game, I mean, he took a lot of shots, but he kept on coming back, and he made some plays with his legs, made some plays with his arm too.
Continuing with the run game, Craig, I know you had went with Trey most of the time, and again, I know as a true freshman, he's still learning and stuff. Are you still liking what you're seeing there and moving forward with him, or continue to maybe mix a couple other guys, or how are you kind of seeing that, I guess?
We're going to look at it during the course of this week, Robert, but I would say right now Trey will get the lion's share of the carries. But we always evaluate during practice. Trey's getting better. A lot of the runs that may seem simple to you and I or some person up in the stands are really more complex than what you might see. So his learning curve, he didn't have the ability or the advantage of going through fall camp. We switched him after fall camp, and so he's still on a learning curve, but he's doing some good things.
Talking about Carl and just, a year removed from the injury, coach, and just the impact he continues to make, especially he and Kevin Prosser off the edge.
That's been a big Carl was playing really well before he tore his ACL last year, and to have he and KP back, they're really athletic guys that have length and great quickness. Both of them bring something different as far as their pass rushing ability. Carl played his best game of the year. The interception was a big time play, but then there was other things. I mean, the safety that he came up with and the other pressures on the quarterback, and we'll need for him to play well. But it's encouraging to see he's carrying more weight and he's using that weight.
Craig, you mentioned that you saw something in the team this weekend. You saw something. Is it tangible when you win on the road that you see a different feel for a team, or is it just a feel about how a team operates on the road?
When you say tangible, I would say overcoming adversity and not playing in your home field, and then kind of being in an environment that you're not normally used to, and yet having adversity and then staying poised and composed and then competing. There was no time during that game that our players ever felt like, okay, here we go again, and that, quite frankly, had been the case before. That culture has changed. there's a competitive attitude with this football team, and not only a competitive attitude, but belief that we're going to win. And that became really apparent during this game. We had to have a last drive, and our offense answered the bell. And, I thought Utah State did some nice things defensively. And so that's just another step forward in the maturation process of our program.
You mentioned, how aggressive the Boise defense is. Does it start somewhere? Does it start up front? Is it active linebackers? Where does it kind of start from? When of all the good things you said about them, where does it start? I guess.
Well, I think it all meshes together, because you can be aggressive all you want to up front, but if you're not strong in the back end, you're going to have some holes. And they I don't want to say take some chances, because what they do is well thought out. However, if you don't have guys in the back end to be able to cover up some of those aggressive plays, then you're going to have some problems. So you've got to really experience. I know one corner Horton's played seemed like forever, but you've got a really aggressive defensive front. I mean, those guys are penetrating. They're shooting gaps. They're very disruptive, and those pose problems for our style of offense.
It seemed like Casper had a really strong game on Saturday. I know he played some for you guys last year, but this year taking over that starting spot, how have you seen him kind of mature in that role?
Well, I think the biggest thing was he didn't have a cast on, and he's been playing the last couple of weeks with the club. And when you're a linebacker, some guys can get acclimated to tackling with a club. He really had a hard time doing that. I think the fact that the pins were out and he was able to play with a brace, he was able to grasp more. And I think maybe in the first half he might have had 11 tackles and he forced a fumble, so it was his best game.
I know you mentioned all the guys that played last week. I know Johanna, you mentioned kind of some sort of foot thing that seems to be okay right now.
Yeah, the indication we were given today was, he may miss today's practice, but they felt like by Tuesday he'll be fine, ready to go.
Other guys, at least that have been out, like Adam and Sid, still continue. Shiloh still continue to be out.
Shiloh will be out. Adam will be out. Sid will be out.